have a really exciting video series to begin sharing with you guys today. This is Zlatina. She is a colleague of mine, and we decided to do a collaboration and help her work through 30 days of going vegan for the first time ever. Zlatina typically eats a high protein carnivorous diet, so this should be a fairly big transition for her. So we are going to start with the initial interview. She has a list of very good questions for me that I think everybody can benefit from coming from anywhere along the plant-based journey. So that's what this video is going to consist of. And then later I will give you the full outcome of how Zlatina managed her way through those 30 days being vegan.
I don't know if you want to do introductions quickly.
Yeah, so I'm Carly. I'm actually a nutrition and wellness coach, and I help people through this process regularly. Typically, the majority of the people that I work with are more so along the lines of they've tried this diet so many times and they just cannot figure out how to make it stick. Like our society is not set up for anybody who's trying to eat a healthy diet in general, but specifically people who are trying to eat this diet. So in order to maintain this lifestyle, sometimes people need some additional support. And I like to work with people for typically 3 months at a time to really get their feet wet and get comfortable in this lifestyle before they move on independently and feel comfortable and confident eating this way in front of others, because that's the biggest problem. Like families are always blended. So like the husbands and the kids are usually eating one way, and then the mom's trying to eat another way, and then trying to slowly convert them. And then when they go dining out, that's a whole nother story. There's all these social pressures that are all these dynamics and nuances that you really don't take into account until you experience it. And you're like, holy cow, this is so much more difficult than I had in mind. Yeah. So yeah, we'll get into that with your questions. So I'm excited.
Amazing. So from my perspective, I have a channel on fitness, nutrition, and travel. So I am interested to try going vegan for 30 days to see how I will feel. And I have a lot of friends that are vegan. And one of the reasons I'm doing this is obviously I adore animals. I'm not sure if I will stick to this lifestyle, but I want to see if it is for me, if I can make a change. And even if I don't stay vegan 100%, maybe I could integrate certain meals or recipes into my day-to-day diet and kind of take a step more towards plant-based meals and have kind of a better balance within my diet.
Yeah, and you're a super interesting case for me because I typically work with people primarily who are trying to lose weight. Yeah. So to work with somebody who is not interested in losing weight, but is definitely interested in maintaining muscle mass, that's a whole other conversation. Yeah, this is my daughter. She might be joining us from time to time. I apologize.
How are you?
She said she's not feeling well.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I give you a virtual hug.
She's vegan too. She's been a vegan since she was in the womb.
I'm 4.
So I am very ready for your questions whenever you are.
Excellent. So I do train 4 times a week. I do upper lower body split. I've been doing that for over 4 years. I've been eating a high protein diet, so I usually get about between 100 to 130 grams of protein per day. So my worry was, one, would the sources of protein be equally good quality as the ones I'm currently having in terms of having all the essential amino acids, being well digestible and bioavailable to my body so that I can continue building muscle? And am I going to be able to get between 100 and 130 grams of protein as a vegan? Those are kind of my 2 concerns. 1, the quality, 2, the quantity.
Okay, so I don't want to like shock you too much. So I'm going to start shifting the perspective a little bit. So let's think about an evolutionary perspective. Let's think about Spartans, like these people who are absolutely built for battle. Like they are the strongest, most muscular, most strategic, like in history of people who have been on the battlefield. And then you have these gladiators in Rome, like all of these individuals, the majority of their diet consisted of plants. And not once did they concern themselves with how much protein they were getting. Never in our history of human evolution did we try to micromanage our nutrition so much. And look where it's gotten us. We are the sickest people on the planet. The people who try to manage this more seem to end up more sick because in all actuality, more protein is far from a good thing. Excess is just as harmful as not getting enough. And it's virtually impossible to not get enough protein as long as you're getting enough calories on any diet. It doesn't matter what you're eating, even fruit, the food that has the most minimal amount of protein. If you're eating an all fruit diet, as long as you're getting enough calories, you're still getting enough protein. So it's a non-issue. You don't have to shoot for a specific amount. And what you are eating, frankly, scares the crap out of me. Because that much protein is only going to harm your bones, for one, because it needs to reduce. Think about what a protein is. It's a bunch of amino acids. Why would you want to raise the pH of your body and create more acidosis, which is going to take calcium out of your bones to buffer that acid? And on top of that, your liver is harmed. And I forget the other component. Oh, the kidneys, of course. The kidneys are harmed by excess protein. Anytime the body has to excrete something that it doesn't need, it's not done without first harming the cells and the tissues of your body. So if you are going to take in protein, just know that your body can only absorb and use so much protein at once. It's not like carbohydrate that we need like ongoing throughout the day, like you would fuel your car. It's something you need in smaller increments. Like think about a fountain, like like artistic aesthetic fountain. You only replenish the water every so few days or so. You know what I mean? Our bodies are really good at preserving and recycling amino acids. And plants actually create all 9 of the essential amino acids. Our body needs 20, right? So 9 of those our bodies don't make. The rest they do. So there's no reason to try to get complete proteins or quality proteins. That's all junk made up by the supplement industries. You want cake? She's still that cake. Plants are the only thing that can actually convert nitrogen through photosynthesis. So all the animals that you're eating actually get their protein from plants. So there's absolutely no reason to concern yourself with needing more protein at any point in time, even if you're building muscle. I believe it was 2019 that the strongest man in the world competition was won by a vegan. And not once did he care about how much protein he was getting.
Yeah. That's interesting.
The tides are shifting. More people are coming to light. And I actually have a fantastic video from a doctor, Dr. Milton Mills, that you can watch on this, or you can put in the show notes for your viewers, that explains the chemistry behind protein. So you understand what it is and why we need it. Being more bioavailable does not always mean a good thing. We don't want more being absorbed into our body than our body can utilize at one time. So the fact that plants do have those fibrous walls to mitigate the absorption and assimilation into the body, that's a good thing. That helps to reduce the harm done by excess. Our body is much better at mitigating how much it needs.
So do you recommend certain sources of protein that you include, for example, in each meal, or do you kind of balance your meals? Like, okay, I need protein, carbs, fats, and kind of cook that way, or you just
Pretty soon, honey.
Or you just cook whatever.
I stay away from macronutrients altogether. There's absolutely no reason to try to micromanage our diet by getting a certain amount of fat, certain amount of carbs, certain amount of protein. Yeah, just eat real food. That's all you got to do. They all plant foods have some ratio of fat, carbs, and proteins, and they've been designed over centuries and millennia to be perfectly assimilated in our body. So there's no reason to try to alter them in some way or concentrate them in order to get a certain response in the body.
That's interesting. I think that would be a big change for me, because now I'm not tracking all calories, but I would track my protein per day. And I usually try to get about 20 per meal. And if I have up to, let's say, 5 meals a day, then I'll get to 100. So yeah, that's definitely a habit that's going to be hard to break. It is. I will definitely.
Because we're all guilty of that.
Yeah. I'll definitely try to punch in my food, though, into my fitness pal just to see kind of where I stand and see how I feel with that kind of ratio, just to have the data. But I will try not to micromanage it, like you said.
Yeah, we really don't need to be so concerned about our diet in that way. And it's not healthy to be so hyper-focused on what we're eating.
Yeah.
And we want to get to a place where we're just comfortable with our food and we're just eating delicious, healthy food, and then we don't have to think about it all day. So also, the best sources. Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, balanced meals are definitely a good idea.
Yeah.
I always try to get at least 2, if not 3 or 4 different foods from each of the plant-based food groups. So there's whole grains, nuts, seeds, legumes, fruits, and vegetables.
Mhm.
So just trying to get a variety of those things in your diet, you'll be perfectly fine.
Okay.
So nuts and seeds and legumes have the most protein, in case you absolutely feel like you need to, incorporate those
Okay.
things.
So,
I honestly don't eat many meals without beans, just because they're so satiating and they're so
Yeah.
good for you in so many different ways that it's the fiber that I go after.
Yeah.
People are always worried about their protein. What we really should be concerned about is the fiber. And the majority of the world is suffering from illnesses of excess right now, nutritional excess. Everybody's so concerned about deficiencies, but really we need to be focused on getting less of everything.
That's an interesting point. That would be
I strength
helpful.
train regularly too, so that was definitely a concern of mine.
Yeah.
When I started eating this way, to make sure I got my protein, because at the time that's what I believed too.
Yeah.
It does take several years to shift your paradigm and your mindset around that stuff.
Yeah. So my other question I think you touched upon as well was deficiencies. So we hear about vegans being deficient in B12. So I wanted to see if there's any kind of supplemented foods that you eat or kind of fortified foods that I should include in my diet, or where do you get your B12 as a vegan?
B12 is the one thing that vegans do need. And that is simply because we live in a very sanitized environment. It does not come from animals. It comes from a microorganism in the soil. So when we eat clean vegetables, unlike what we used to eat when we were, living off foraging and such, now we don't get those microorganisms that are necessary to create the B12 in our body. So in order to get that, you only need 2.4 micrograms per day. But you will not find a supplement anywhere that only has 2.4 micrograms in it. You will find 500 and 1,000. And so the body is converting the B12. That's why it's so high. I mean, I try to take a 500 spray maybe once a week, because you really don't need to be obsessive about it, and it doesn't need to be a daily process.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. So it's just a spray that you use once a week. Your food. Huh. Okay.
Yeah, I try to find the ones with the least amount of junk in them. And just know that all plant foods contain all of the 9 essential amino acids, and they all contain in differing amounts all the minerals, all the vitamins that we need, as long as you're getting a combination of, like I said, at least 2 different food groups of those plant-based food groups in each meal, like say sweet potatoes and broccoli, or rice and Brussels sprouts, or rice and beans. Like those will give you everything you need. We only need small, minute amounts of these minerals and vitamins every day. And then people forget about all the phytonutrients and different chemicals in plants that our bodies also require that we just haven't discovered yet. The antioxidants, the phytonutrients, like there's so many things that we don't yet understand that we should not be trying to micromanage our bodies with.
Right. Let's see. So in that case, I assume that you don't take any vegan protein powder as a supplement neither?
No, those are actually super harmful and not regulated at all. They've done so many studies looking at what's actually in those protein powders, and the majority of them don't even have the active ingredient that they say they do.
Okay.
On top of that, they all include heavy metals and other contaminants that should not be in our bodies. And these are some of the most popular brands. So it's not just like one-off protein supplements. Like you can look for yourself if you want. There's plenty of research out there. But also putting something in such a concentrated form and assuming our body is just going to build magical muscles from taking this like protein powder. Like think about what sugar is. It's a concentrated carbohydrate. Think about what oil is. It's a concentrated fat. Like our body doesn't know what to do with that except store calories. And what do they do to animals to fatten them up? They give them extra protein. They give them lots of animal food.
All right. So I'll try to stay away from it, but we'll see how I feel.
It's totally up to you. Whatever you decide to do with your body that's up to you. I just like people to be informed because right now, everything that we're basing our nutrition off of is coming from billion-dollar food and supplement industries that are not going to have our health in their best interest. So I was brainwashed when I was a kid. I completely thought that milk was necessary for calcium and building strong bones. And Now they find that countries who drink the most milk have the highest fracture rates. You know, it's like the total opposite of everything that we've grown to understand.
That's so
It's
funny. I was raised with like milk from the cow, literally, like we wouldn't even pasteurize it or anything like that. It would just be directly from the cow, just kind of boil it a little bit, take out the fat on top, and then I would drink that, and I would drink tons of it, like 2, 3 glasses as a kid all the time. Yeah,
me too.
yeah. So I have a couple more questions for you. What
Yep.
are your go-to meals when you go to restaurants? What do you pick on the menu that's vegan, that can kind of fit your lifestyle?
So I want to redirect the whole vegan terminology to just whole real plant foods.
Okay.
I think that's a mistake that so many people make when they try to transition to this lifestyle or this diet or whatever you want to make it for this time in your life, is that they try to convert everything from what they used to eat into a newer fake version of it, a newer vegan version of it. And unfortunately, there are so many products out there these days that are accommodating to that tendency. But these products are, again, are not in our best interest. So shifting from like a regular burger to a vegan burger or a regular taco to a vegan taco or a pizza or any of those old favorites, you can make healthful versions of those foods with whole plant foods, but please don't go purchase them at a restaurant or a grocery store. It's just going to be a bunch of processed junk. So the whole point of the diet is to be healthy, not to just not eat animals. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So with a whole food plant-based diet, you're not only getting the benefit of not eating animals and, you know, having that ethical component, but you're also having the health component benefit. So some of my go-tos are salads, obviously. You cannot go wrong with salads. And then you can bring your own dressing, so you don't have to worry about the oily concoctions that they have.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I eat before I go to restaurants, so I'm not ravenous.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah.
I typically bring a meal to the restaurant. Like,
Okay.
nobody cares. Nobody cares. And they might look at you funny at first, but if these are people that you are going to hang out with consistently in your life, like eventually they'll just know, like, oh, this is Zlat. This is what she does. She's super healthy.
Oh, all right.
So otherwise, sides. I love sides. They always have potatoes, sweet potatoes, rice, steamed vegetables, things that are perfectly healthful. And don't feel like you can't pick and choose from different items on the menu. Like this entree has this particular dish that I want, and this entree has this particular dish that I want. So let's mix and match. And you know, they're there to serve you. And it's no different to ask for accommodations if you have some kind of allergy or if you are carnivorous and you just want something completely different than what's on the menu. You would still ask for accommodations. So don't feel like you're being a pain in the butt or, you know, like they are uncomfortable with your request. And you can always call ahead or research the menu ahead of time. I always recommend doing that. And ethnic places are always a good go-to, like
Yeah.
Japanese or Mexican or Indian. There's so many different cuisines that are initially plant-based and then there were Americanized. So then they put a bunch of animal products in them. So you can always ask for special accommodations. Yeah.
And last,
Honestly, I don't even enjoy going out to eat anymore because it doesn't taste as good as
it
my food
tastes
at
the
home.
same, eh? Well, that brings me to my next question is where do you get your recipes? Where do you get inspiration on what food to prepare and how to prepare it?
So some of the people that really helped me in the beginning, I'll just share them. So, but nowadays, honestly, it's so simple. Like you don't even have to bother with recipes and being so elaborate in your meals. More simplicity, the better. The more likely it's sustainable, the more likely you'll stick to it. Some days I just eat, like I said, a sweet potato and broccoli. Like that is so satisfying to me that I couldn't care less about having some elaborate pasta dish or something. How do you ask? Yes, I don't know. So some people that I followed were like Chef AJ. She's really helpful. And then there is Simnet Nutrition. I can send you these links too.
Thank you.
He is phenomenal with creating delicious, colorful, vibrant, healthy meals. And there's the Whole Foods Plant-Based Cooking Show, which is a newer one. Oh, the Vegan 8.
Mm-hmm.
And nutritionstudies.org is Dr. T. Colin Campbell's website. He has a ton of plant-based recipes. If you're really into recipes, that's where I would go. Cookbooks, particularly the health promoting cookbook by I know Dr. Alan Goldhammer created it, but I forget the dietitian that made the recipes. And the Bravo cookbook is a great one. So, but honestly, I've never used a cookbook. Sometimes I use recipes online, like the Vegan 8 is a great one for recipes online because she only uses 8 ingredients
That's
and keeps
cool.
things
Yeah. Simple.
Exactly.
That's better. Yeah, I think I'll definitely take a look at that. Get some inspiration, get some go-to meals so it's easier for me. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's definitely easier for somebody transitioning to find those old familiar favorites, some pizza, some tacos, some
that'd be nice. Okay.
burgers, different things that you feel like you're not going totally out on a limb because your taste buds are going to take a while to adapt.
Yeah.
Like the best thing about this diet, one of the best things is that you don't have food cravings anymore. Like you're not artificially stimulating your palate with a bunch of man-made junk.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have any like, oh, I gotta have this cookie, or like
Yeah.
you can't stop having preoccupations and obsessive thoughts about specific foods. It's not like that. It's hunger and satiety. Hunger and satiety.
That's interesting. I hope so because I have a sweet tooth and I crave sweets.
You'll be able to eat a sweet potato and just be in heaven.
I already do. I love sweet potatoes. It's crazy.
Good.
Yeah,
There
I
you
eat
go.
a lot of
Just start with your
potatoes, sweet
favorite.
potato rice. Yeah.
Start with your favorites and go from there. You don't have to eat something you don't like just because it's healthy.
Right.
There's so many thousands of plant species. You don't ever have to force yourself to eat kale or Brussels sprouts or whatever it is.
Yeah, Brussels sprouts are on my no-go list. They give me heartburn, but I like kale. Yeah. Do you use any sauces, for example, like ketchup and stuff like that, or no?
No, there's no need. It tastes so good. Like herbs and spices. You will use herbs and spices ad libitum. Just dump those on your food because your palate is going to be so like adulterated from the hyperstimulated man-made versions of food that you're going to need that time to like transition and give your taste buds a less of a shock. Most people think that this food is so bland, but it's just because they don't know how to season their food properly. Add those herbs and spices. Make things a little spicy. Put some cayenne pepper or some red pepper flakes. That's a good transitioning tool to get off of the salt, as well as using acidity. So like vinegar, tomato paste, citrus fruit, mustard, different things that will give you that like tartness or that like, that umami flavor without actually putting a bunch of sodium on your food.
Okay. I think I'll keep ketchup in my diet. That's the one I can't give up. But the rest I'm okay with eating.
You can make your own ketchup too without all that like high fructose corn syrup and sugar and salt and preservatives.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know you're not totally doing this, for health at the moment. It's a big part of an experiment, but looking at the big picture, like at some point in time, thinking about all the other chemicals in the food and trying to convert to healthier, like homemade versions might be something that you want to, look into. That's
step by step, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It took me a long time to get to where I am. So by all means, I'm giving you the professional like expertise version, but there's definitely steps that I took to get there for sure. Bottled dressing and such instead of, just plain vinegar, and it takes a while to get there.
Right. Well, I'm excited. I think that's all my questions. Actually, I did want to ask you one last thing. So what would you say is the best and worst thing about transitioning to being vegan? I know that in your case it wasn't necessarily a choice, you had to do it, but is there something that kind of stands out to you that you want to share?
So I love that you point that out, and absolutely this is my favorite question. So I didn't have to go vegan. What I had to do was stop eating gluten. Okay. That was what was medically prescribed for my diet. But I took out the gluten, and 5 years later, I was still suffering from the majority of the problems that I had originally acquired from eating the gluten. So infuriated with my doctors and my dietitians, I went and I just started doing my own research. I found Dr. T. Colin Campbell's book, The China Study. It's like the largest epidemiological study ever conducted in the history of human nutrition. And it was so obvious what I needed to do with my diet. I highly recommend that book. It is like everybody's gateway drug into veganism.
Hmm.
So if you take the animal products out of your diet and allow your body to heal naturally, that's exactly what happened in my situation. And the majority of people in this space will share some sort of story along those lines. Like, I was suffering, it was obnoxious, I was taking 11 different medications and medical procedures and seeing doctors. You know, I had a team of 12 specialists at one point, and I was on 11 medications, and it was absurd in my early 20s to be suffering with like joint problems and migraines and just depression and anxiety, like all these ADD, like all these weird things that are not natural. They're common, but they're not normal.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, my my least favorite thing about veganism, or like the hardest thing, is definitely the criticism and judgment from others, and the fact that our society is not set up in a way to facilitate
Right.
a healthy diet,
Mm-hmm.
not just veganism, but a healthy diet in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's become so taboo to eat healthy. Like, bringing my own food to a restaurant, I shouldn't have to feel uncomfortable or feel the need that I have to bring my own food to a restaurant
Yeah.
just to honor my body. And I should be the norm. It shouldn't be weird to want to eat a salad or to eat a sweet potato with some vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
It should be weird to turn down a cookie at a social event, or, you know, an alcoholic drink or any of that stuff. It should be totally normal and honored if you have wishes to take care of your body, especially if you suffered from some sort of, you know, illness in the past. And my favorite thing is by far the taste of the food. Like,
Yeah.
people think that going into, and the health, obviously, like the vibrant health that you experience. Like, I didn't even know this was possible. Like, you just imagine that as you grow older, you're going to become decrepit and like have all these health problems, but you don't. That's not normal. It's common, but it's not normal. You can actually age very gracefully and well into your older years and not suffer from these harmful illnesses. And that's what all of like the blue zones have achieved. All these people who are living normal, healthy lives and still getting up off the floor and playing with their grandchildren in their 90s or even 100s.
Wow.
You know, so that's my goal. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in a nursing home. I don't want to be dependent on other people to take care of my activities of daily living, like picking up my groceries and bathing myself. You know, like, I want to be functional until I die, period. It's very unfortunate that we think that we have to acquire dementia and we have to acquire cancer and we have to acquire heart disease. These are all diseases of affluence. They're all diseases of confusion around what we're supposed to be eating and living in an environment of abundance of healthy or unhealthy, unnatural foods. Like, it's not fair. It is completely not fair that we are animals to our core. So trying to be in an environment where these artificial foods are just like overwhelming our nervous system, like, obviously we're going to give into them at the end of the day if they're in our vicinity. But if you surround yourself with whole natural fruits and vegetables and whole grains and legumes, you don't ever, ever, ever have to be bombarded with those choices. It's always a no-brainer. I'm always going to choose my food over that junk. I don't trust anybody making my food except me. I've seen what happens when I trust other people with my food.
Right. Yeah. You're the boss of what you put into your body. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we put way too much faith into food companies. And you know what the food companies do? They go out and buy stock in the medication companies, in the pharmaceutical companies, because they know exactly where their products lead.
They just want you money. That's what they want.
Right.
Yeah.
So I truly hope this helps to like open up some people's perspective, and like, it's fantastic that it's all encompassing. It helps the environment, it helps the economy, it helps the animals, it helps your body. Why would you not eat this way? It's just a no-brainer in my book. So yeah. And another one of your questions was on whether or not you feel full on this diet, or whether you're be hungry all the time.
Right.
That is such an important question, because if we're hungry, we do not stick to something.
No.
Period. That's a game changer. That's a total deal breaker. So I have never felt more satisfied eating other foods in my life. When I was eating a standard American style, like burgers and, you know, cookies and cakes and all of that junk food, I was never fully satisfied. I was always craving food and always thinking about food. That's not how we're supposed to live our life. We're supposed to eat a couple, 2-3 times a day and be on with it. Like, go be with work and be with your family, not constantly wondering where your next snack is coming from. So beans actually have two different forms of starch. They have slow burning starch and they have resistant starch. So it's this wonderful synchrony of plant food that just work together in order to properly nourish our body and send the proper signals of hunger and satiety. And it's just, like I said, it's an absolute no-brainer, and I'm so excited for you. I can't wait for you to start your journey, and I would love for you to touch base and let me know how you're doing, and if you have any questions. And it's I couldn't be more excited for you.
Yes, I'm excited too. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to not be doing this alone.